Hello, everyone, and welcome to IPTC Sponsoring Society's Top Papers Part 2. This is the live Q&A. My name is Eric Delamed. I'm with IFP Technologies in Calgary, Canada, where it's late in the evening. And my co-chair, Dr. Imad Garaiba with Baker Hughes is also joining us. So tonight we're going to have two really good papers. You probably saw the feed and the video. And we're going to have now the questions and answers with our two speakers. So let's start with the first paper. And before we do that, you see the little message at the bottom of the screen. So please, if you have any question for any of the speakers, put them in the comments. You can have them, and then we will read them and ask to the speakers when their time comes. So thanks for joining once again. So let me go right away with the first speaker, Giorgio de Paola, with a senior reservoir advisor with Repsol. And you probably saw his paper. Here is Giorgio. So Giorgio, to start, for the people who didn't see the paper, could you give us a brief recap? I'm not asking you to redo the whole paper, but just give us a brief recap of what the paper is about.
Yes, thanks, Eric. Thanks, everybody. The idea of the paper is to introduce reinforcement learning in the field of planning for field development plan optimization. The idea is really try to homogenize how we treat the planning and the surveillance, so the long-term action and the short-term action. The idea is basically having an agent, a reinforcement learning agent, which is capable of interacting over an environment, receive a feedback, so the observation and the status, so that we can iterate on this and find always the best action associated to the observation. Meaning that basically we want to find a policy, so a set of decision making, a set of decision that can optimize the future of our reservoir. It's basically an optimization framework, but brought onto bringing the AI into it to make it simple.
Sorry, I was muted. So thank you for the brief explanation. So of course there are lots of questions. My really first questions when I saw the paper was, do we still need engineers? Because the model is doing a lot of the work. So I'm getting worried for myself. Maybe I'm going to be useless.
No, okay, this is a good question. But when we talk about AI, especially in this case, we are not thinking of removing the engineer from the loop. Basically, what we want, the same as we want for optimization. So we want to have the largest exploration of our search space to find the best solution. Reinforcement learning does the same. The only thing it brings into the picture also the feedback of the reservoir, so that you have the option of including more information. So while you are assimilating information over time, you'll get a better view of your uncertainty. So the uncertainty space will basically shrink. Basically, if you are in a tree, you're pruning some of the branches to go forward only with the branches that are still valid and they are not, let's say, falsified by your observation. It means that you have more information that you need to process, and the engineer has to be there for many points. For points related with the geological plausibility of your reservoir, you need to give inputs to the algorithm. You need to evaluate the results of this algorithm. The only thing it provides you and enables you to have a larger type of data set to work with. And since you are now bringing the planning into and the surveillance together, you need to be able to understand when there is an early surveillance point that requires a reaction. That is the point where the users or the engineer comes into picture. Actually, it's reinforcing what the engineer should be doing at work. So it's actually helping rather than removing the figure of the human.
Okay, I'm relieved. But I mean, when I see methods like that, one of my questions is always, how complex a situation can they handle? because I can see that they can work fairly well, in a simple situation, but how complicated a situation can they handle?
Well, of course, this is, I would say, the first practical application or reinforcement learning for planning that has been published. So I'm not saying that right now we can encompass all type of analysis. What we are bringing to picture is a new framework. Now, right now it is limited to water flooding application, what we have developed. But it can really be enlarged on many other aspects, right? So right now we have location and control, but you can bring any type of well architecture. You can bring any type of decision. So not only where to drill a well. So it can become as large as we want. The only problem in inverted comma is that the larger is the decision space, the more action you can perform. So it requires more computational time and more finer, let's say, element of decision that to bring into a real reservoir. So we are in the process, and it can become as complex as we want. The same as it would be an optimizer when we start doing optimization under uncertainty, for example.
Okay, so then in principle, maybe you are not able to do it now, but in principle, one day it would be able to handle enhanced oil recovery, for instance, like chemical injection or polymer injection, because you are already doing water flood. So when you have chemicals, it's slightly more complicated. But in principle, eventually, you would be able to do that as well, right?
Well, I have to say that there is already a paper in reinforcement learning for ER application. So that is something that is already happening. The difference of this paper with respect to that one is that reinforcement learning, you can basically apply it in two areas, right? There is the area of control, specifically on reactive control, and there is the one on planning. Right now, what we are presenting is the planning, which can also include the well control. So indeed, we can do it. Actually, there are already some very simple synthetic examples to do ER with it, and I don't see that in a too long future. It's something that can be applied almost right away. So of course there is more decision that we need to more decision that we need to include into our decision space. So it will broader the actual number of variables that we need to solve for. But yes, it's something that can be applied probably not in so late future.
So that's very interesting. I was not aware of that other paper. I need to look it up. But I see that we have one question from the audience. So maybe I should go to that. The question is interesting. It's coming from Parag Boraranya, and I'm sorry if I butcher your name, but would you prefer polymer flooding in place of water flooding in application to obtain better results? So I don't know if it's really a question that you want to tackle, but maybe give it a shot.
I mean, right now we are talking about a framework, so it really depends on what is the field that you are looking at, and it depends on the history that this field has had. So right now, as a polymer flooding instead of water flooding, as a general statement, I'd rather stay with the water flooding right now, but because there are so many analyses that you have to do prior before actually introducing a polymer flooding. So I would say for water flooding right now, that has the largest wider of application right now. Polymer flooding for very specific cases would be, of course, very, very useful.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the question from the audience. One of the things that I would like to hear you talk about a bit more is about the limitations of the method. What do you see are the main limitations of the method? Is it just the computing power that you need, or what's your take on it?
No, the method is still at what we say early TRL. TRL is technology readiness level. So we're saying that we are about TRL 6. So there is still things that we need to go forward and still work on it. in order to bring it as a standard tool for the market. What I would say that are the key limit as of today. We need to investigate more in the agent network, so to make it more robust and faster to learn. We need to be able to reduce as much as possible the number of decision parameters, so that otherwise we can become unbearable to solve for that large number. So the intervention of human, so the definition of the specific the specific decision in the search space that we want to work on, it's very important. And the other point is the computational power, of course. Right now we are using a proxy model, which give us 40,000 speed up, which is great. Of course, you can run, but one case that we did and was presented in the paper, we were able to run 600,000 simulation overnight. So that is really an enabler for this type of workflow. And there are ways to improve that also in terms of training time for the network. So these are probably the three main points that need to go to proceed further. So a better description of the agent, to introduce or reduce the search space so that it becomes bearable for a more complicated application, and still work on proxy model to make it more reliable and faster.
Okay. I have, or Imad, do you have a question maybe for Giorgio if you want? Otherwise, I had the last question.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay.
Just go ahead, please.
Yeah, something that was not completely clear for me when I saw the presentation was you are talking about this fast simulator that allows you to really speed up the process. Can you tell us a bit more? I think that's what you were also just discussing, but I'm not completely clear. Is it a new simulator? Is it analytical solutions? That was not completely clear for me. So if you could explain a little bit, that would be great.
Yes. Well, for reference, there is a companion paper on the past ATC 2020 that were describing in details this proxy model. Proxy model is basically a substitution of the numerical simulator just to speed up and maintain a certain level of accuracy. So there are different type of proxy models, right? In this case, what we wanted is to reproduce a sequence of input over a sequence of output, and this is basically supervised learning. Try to make the two comparing, and we are using a complex and ad hoc neural network in order to do it. So it's not analytical, it's not a numerical simulator, but it's not going to replace a numerical simulator, because right now we are going to use the numerical simulator in order to train this model. It's just a very complex proxy that reproduces in a very faster way and very accurate. We had a 1% error over the old simulation that we have computed. So very good simulator, a very good proxy. And we had a speed up, as I said, of 40,000 per. So it's definitely an enable for this type of workflow.
So okay, so now that's much clearer. So I guess really the one of the key aspects is the training, how you train this proxy model, because if the training is not correct, then all your work after that is not going to be good, right?
Yes and no, in the sense. Okay, first of all, the simulator, the goodness of the proxy in this case is not residing on the actual number, the actual value that it provides, but it's the ranking of the scenarios that you are evaluating. So even though everything is 10% off, doesn't really make any difference, because what you want to have is an accurate ranking of your scenario, right? So that is one thing. The second thing is you don't have to use a proxy model. You can use just a numerical simulator. It depends how much time it takes, but especially right now with the cloud application that we have, the cloud environment that we have, you can probably just launch it on a very large number of cores, and it will still be enough. So the simulator is just an enabler, and it's something that we can use, and the technology behind the proxy is becoming more and more accurate. Right now we are working on another proxy that we don't need as many simulation in order to train, and it just train on a handful of simulations, so that that makes everything much faster, and you can tune on better resolution in order to generate always a better proxy model. But I mean, the framework is independent on the proxy, so you can use directly the simulator, the numerical simulator, and will still be working.
Okay, well, thanks very much for all these explanations, Giorgio. That was really interesting for me. I've learned a lot today. But I think we are running out of time for you, and we need to leave time for the other presenter. So I'm going to turn over the floor to Imad, my co-chair. And thanks, Giorgio.
Very good. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation and questions and discussion. Now we will move to the second paper and presentation in this session. As mentioned before, it was presented last week. This presentation, the title was Preventing the Next Big Will Control Event, a Leading Indicator Approach. The paper and presentation has been written by Nafis Tamim and Geir Karlsen, who are with us today, the author and the co-author. And I would like to first to present them, then we probably get a very quick refreshment about the topic in that paper, so we can get the audience the possibility for asking questions. First, Nafis Tamim is a PhD in chemical engineering. He is specialized in will control and process safety from the Texas A&M University. He has process engineering experience in the upstream oil and gas industry right now, and he's leading he is working as a lead operation engineer in the chemical industry in Texas, USA. Geir has about 30 years of experience in the oil industry, and he's the founder of the Deep Ocean LLC. I will give you probably the possibility a little bit to refresh our memories about the paper, what came there, and we look forward to see the audience questions.
All right, thank you. I'm Geir Karlsen. I'll recap a little bit about the paper, and then I'll get the word to Dr. Tamim, who was a key contributor to the paper. The reason we put this paper together was because, as we all know, we have had a huge number of industrial incidents over the years. And I was in the middle of Macondo in the response, and there are numerous other incidents like Texas City, Prior Trust. And common for them all was they all had the leading indicators that told a story that something was not quite right. The barriers were not healthy. Something was about to fail. So I reached out to OESI, Offshore Energy Safety Institute at Texas A&M. I met Dr. Tamim, who was doing research on leading indicators, and that's kind of how the story started. We formed an industry group, and this last year we have been at pretty much a standstill in progressing because of the COVID-19. But now we are moving forward back with Texas A&M, the Offshore Energy Safety Institute. So, Dr. Tamim, maybe you could fill in a few blanks that I left in the introduction of the paper.
Thank you, Geir. Thank you, Dr. Imad. Yeah, sure. What I want to add, you covered that like nicely, the background. Just wanted to add that a little bit of background on the research that we started in Texas A&M probably back in 2014. Really, the focus was when we started looking into the industrial events, as Geir mentioned, that especially that high consequence, low frequency events, we cannot really rely on the lagging indicators like the numbers, like whenever a failure is occurred, and it can lead to an escalate to another failure, a bigger consequence event or failure. So what we wanted to look into that, whether we can group together some of the leading indicators, some of the weak signals. And when we did some research, we identified that there are some technical indicators that we can rely on, but at the same time, we wanted to like look beyond that and see what are the human and organizational factors play into that, and whether we can group all these indicators, different signals together to give us some information, some early information on the integrity of the safety control system. So that's what sort of like genesis of this project. And Geir already went through the presentation, which was sort of like covered the aspect of the project, where we are, what we have done so far, and what are the plans.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's actually, yeah. Do you want to give something, or do you want to?
No, I'm good.
Or should we start with the questions? Yeah, we have got the question. Actually, probably it can highlight this. It kind of has the status of the leading indicator in the well control. And Geir just mentioned that you are now coming back after the corona, and the industry is coming back as well. And the question is, came here, is that how or what is the status of the project on leading indicator in well control right now? How it looks like for the project?
Okay, I'll answer that, and Dr. Tamim can pop in. The Offshore Energy Safety Institute has been funded through BESI, so the regulatory arm of the U.S. government, and funding is about to expire, and they are seeking funding for another project, the Process Safety 2.0, and because of the change in administration, things are not moving very fast. So they are not quite in a standstill, but they are waiting to see how the institute will be funded as we move forward. Dr. Tamim, you probably have some more information on that.
No, Geir, I think what you covered, we're still like looking forward to that, to the establishment of the institute, and then like pick the work that we started, and that's the current status. Really, we're getting together. We picked up some of the work that we left behind, and we have some students, like some graduate student, working on some of the pieces of this work. So we're in process of getting together, and like soon we'll be like probably have some like cross-functional team meeting on the next steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Tamim, does that mean that the operators play a certain role, or how is the perception from the industry and the operators to support this project and to apply it?
I can start, and Geir, please feel free to jump in. The operator, like they're really like we identified that the key stakeholders and operators, like they do play a very important role, because when you're talking about the leading indicators, and we're talking about a framework that we want to implement while we are working on a rig, or we are going through some well-controlled operations. So the operators, like they definitely need to be participate in this program, and this because we're now talking about dealing with some of the data that will flow into this framework and provide with some like insights for the operators and for the drillers to like make pre-decisions. So so far we have seen a great deal of interest from the operators. We do have different operator company participations from different operator companies, and they provided good feedback and also offered their help and valuable information that can help this project to move forward. Geir, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think on a project like this, I think it's key to have industry support. You can have a university with the Offshore Energy Safety Institute do a lot of the research, but it's going to take operators, I think, and part of the service industry to participate and be active participants in order to move this forward, because it has to do with, we're talking about well control, and its operator is a drilling contractor, it's a service company like Schlumberger, Baker, who are on the rig, they're monitoring the well operations. It's going to take an effort from all these companies to say, yeah, leading indicators, that's a really interesting project, and this is really the way we need to go, because we've had too many incidents, and we know we can reduce the number of incidents. We should be able to reduce incidents to zero if we do this project right, in my view.
Yeah, Geir, it's not only about the support and the funding. Actually, I can imagine that in such a project, it's also a lot of history data and project data, previous data, and the development of such a project depends on the analytics and the previous data from the operators. Is that something that's you can also get support in this area from the operators?
I think so, but what we see is that operators are very careful with providing data, and we've seen that after Macondo because of liabilities and lawyers and all that. So it's it is somewhat difficult, and the data we get is scrubbed, but I don't think we need a whole lot of data for this project. We have a pretty good idea how to move forward, and looking at the past incident, looking at the leading indicators that we had from past incident, we can build a really good bow tie system showing all the barriers on the left-hand side of the bow tie, and to move this project forward. And I don't think it's going to take a huge amount of funding. That is not the issue, but it's going to take commitment from companies to say, yes, we believe in the project and we want to do something about this.
Okay, I hope that you will see more support, and I think this will lead us to different, as you mentioned, I mean, or you read from the title, that's we don't really, we need to avoid and to operate safely, avoid environments and other catastrophes. And I hope you will also continue doing this and have success. With this, I think we don't have any other questions from the audience, and I will be back to you. Thank you very much for the great presentation.
I have just one more thing. More thing I'd like to say, and Dr. Tamim, you can chime in. But this is not just a project that is applicable to well operations. This is a project that is applicable to any industry that deals with stored energy. So if you look at all industry incidents over the years, not just in well operations, but can be nuclear industry, can be any chemical industry, fertilizer industry, where we had incidents, they all had the leading indicators that show that something was about to happen. So this is applies to a wide range of industries. Dr. Tamim, anything?
No, I agree. That's a great point. In fact, the initial framework that we developed, that was like heavily inspired by the aviation industry, like something that is considered high reliability organization. So yeah, it's sort of like applicable to any process industry or non-process industry as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to thank you very much, and would like to say goodbye and thank you, Eric. Thank you very much for your support and for this great contribution.